My name's Todd Knapp. This is Tyler, and Tyler and I have been doing this together for a very, very long time. The subject that we want to talk to you guys about is sort of near and dear to our hearts. We haven't built tons of slideware. In fact, there's only 6 slides, I think, in total. And the only reason I put them there was because I came here earlier and looked in the room and went, crap, there's like a 30-foot screen. I'm going to look stupid without a slide. So I made a slide for you. Isn't it pretty? What we want to do today is just talk a little bit about how to elevate what you're doing in the virtual desktop space. So before we go too far with that, I thought we would tell you a little bit about our company. Do you want to tell them about LWL?
Sure, yeah. So I'm T-Rex, as I'm known in the industry. I'm the co-founder of Liquidware Labs, and we are a software company that was born out of the kind of early dark ages of VDI. There were a number of issues that we were trying to solve way back in the beginning. If you're familiar with terms like persistent versus non-persistent, and obviously the IOPS issue and this little law of physics, not suggestion of physics, called latency. These were all things that we were struggling with. And it's been an interesting 6 years. We've installed our software on about 6 million desktops. We've got about 4,000 customers now, ranging from the smallest organizations up to the very, very largest. But I think the exciting thing about being on stage and having a chance to talk to all you folks today is all of those lessons learned, all of those scars, all of the stubbed toes that we've been through over the last 6 years and 6 million desktops, we can short circuit for you. And so I think we're here to add some value to your thought process around how to deliver workspaces to end users, and maybe more importantly, not to stumble over some of the speed bumps. So yeah, we're in all countries, all states in the union, and I think today Todd and I are going to have some fun with you all, talking a little bit about how this technology that was born out of the early days of VDI can actually extend and apply to maybe every network user that you have under your domain. That's what we do.
Right on. Yeah, it is. So when I present, I always pace around, so watching me is a little like watching an IMAX. It's easy to get nauseous because it's like watching a tennis match back and forth. But if you can bear with me with that, then we're going to have some fun. Envision Technology Advisors, based in Rhode Island. We have an office up here in Massachusetts, too. We were the very, very first certified VMware partner in Rhode Island. We were in the first 10 in New England. When we got certified, we were actually aware of a company that we were modeling ourselves after a company that Tyler was then running that later became the professional services arm for VMware. So we've been doing this as long as anybody has been doing it. Anyone ever remember a product called WinFrame way back in like the yesteryear? Yeah, I was also the very first certified WinFrame administrator in New England. I traveled down to Florida and then also to Virginia.
I think you're supposed to apologize after you say that.
I know, I'm sorry. Apologies. So, I mean, we've been doing this forever. And, we could easily stand here with a ton of slideware and a bunch of, prefab information for you guys. I'd much rather just have a conversation with you and tell you what we've learned and find out a little bit about what you guys are doing and give you guys the opportunity to, like, in the middle, just holler at me or throw your hand up, I don't care, a flare, whatever you've got on you. Feel free to interrupt us because we want to interact with you. I don't want to just sit here and talk at you. So my company, aside from being very early in virtualization and early in virtual desktops, we're a full network consultancy, so we're providing all the conventional networking services that you would expect there, the switching and routing and border security and all those things that come along with it. And that's been a very good thing for us because as we've encountered challenges in the virtual desktop world, the end user computing world, we've been able to correlate what we know about conventional IT infrastructure to those problems and sort of find some creative ways to solve them. So the subject of the conversation today, virtual end user computing. First of all, how many of you have today some form of virtual end user computing happening in your environments? Everybody. Great. Citrix? Okay, the one hand, very small too. Yeah. VMware? Hyper-V? More than one solution at a time. Anyone have more than one? Yeah, these are the people that I really like talking to. So when we talk about virtual end user computing, if you had seen our booth, if you walked over there, we were talking a lot about why do things fail? Why doesn't VDI work? In fact, I had a giant sign over the booth that said, if you're talking about VDI, you missed the point. It's because I don't want to virtualize a desktop. I want to virtualize Tyler. Well, not specifically Tyler.
It's happened before.
But I want to virtualize the user population. I want to understand who they are and what they do and why they do it. And then I want to marry the technology to that. I want to spend less money screwing around with stuff that kind of works and put the right money in the right place so that every other dollar can get into the hands of technologies that are going to actually enable the student population, enable the users behind my keyboards. So that's really the focus of the conversation today. Tyler, you told me a story the other day.
Yeah, it's actually probably a decent segue to get us
really
going.
Kind of is.
So this is a story that I actually heard Steve Jobs tell, and it was actually from a long, long time ago. It was like 1980, and it's funny, you look back on your life. I just turned 45, so I'm an old gray-haired man now, I guess, at least in this space. But you remember certain stories, especially when they're applicable to some of the things we're trying to solve now. And so Steve tells this story about Scientific America. And Scientific America did a study back in the early 1970s, and what they were trying to calculate was the efficiency of locomotion. They wanted to calculate which species in the animal kingdom were the most efficient in terms of the amount of distance they could travel on like a kilocalorie of energy. So they tested everything. They tested dogs and cats, they tested birds, ducks, goats, you name it. And it turns out that the most efficient animal on the planet was the condor. It could go the furthest distance on a kilocalorie of energy. And man had a respectable showing, somewhere around the top third of the ratios there. But then someone came up with the bright idea of testing man on a bicycle. And it turns out that man on a bicycle was orders of magnitude more efficient than even that condor in terms of our ability to travel. And so I like this segue because it kind of begs to answer the question, why was that true? And I think it's because we are a species of tool makers. We inherently want to build things. We want to build tools that amplify an existing human ability, right? Creativity, travel, speed, strength. And I think about not only what we make at Liquidware Labs, but more importantly, the work that I see Todd and the team at Envision do. And these are, you might not be saying it, but these are the questions and the challenges that you come to us with. Like, so for example, I'm going to pick on you, sorry, but it'll be the only time. If I gave you a magic wand and said, okay, as far as end user computing goes in your organization, you can amplify anything, you can solve any problem you have with this magic wand. I mean, what are 2 or 3 things that come up that are top of mind? Can be anything in the end user computing spectrum. We can make fun of any vendors or brands or anything that you use or have used. Security, is that something?
Security.
Yeah. Anyone here have the Dropbox issue? Probably not, right? So security.
Access, just speed of access.
Ah, these different devices in different places on different networks, a lot of which we don't own. How the heck? 2 or 3 seconds. What about like rollover of classrooms where you have to like build an image, put all the applications in that stack, keep your fingers crossed that the right students come into the right classrooms at the right time, and then break it all down and put it all back up, right? Yeah, so these are very typical of what we hear not only in higher education, but what we hear across the industry, which is start with a very simple question, I think. What problem is it that you're trying to solve? Or what few problems would you solve if you could? And that's where it becomes nothing short of magic to start applying some of the technologies that Todd and I are going to talk to you about today. But I'll hand it back over to you, because
great place.
That's where my brain is at right now.
No, it's great. And I mean, to me, how many of you actually are IT professionals, work in the IT department? Right. So I'm going to challenge a thought here. I think our industry is a total mess. I'm an IT professional. I own an IT company. I'm one of the few IT professionals who will get on stage, or I write for several different publications, and periodically my articles are like flamed by people because I'm out there saying, hey, IT is in disarray and we need to do something about it, and everybody's saying, no, I've got it under control. The reason I say that it's in disarray is because we've been a population of innovators if we go back 10, 15 years. But if we look in the last 5 years, we haven't been a population of innovators. In the last 5 years, our user population has been innovating, and they've been bringing devices to us. They found Dropbox way before we did in the IT department. Our user population found Dropbox. Our user population found the new iPhone. They all came in with the latest tablet. They came in with the wearable technologies, all the things they want to put on our networks, and we were in this position of suddenly being flooded by technology that we were unprepared to control. And it left us in the position of constantly having to say no. And so we went from being innovators to being obstructionists pretty fast. And I'm of the mind that when we're in that mode, we're constantly trying to be tactical about how we solve problems. So how did virtual desktops happen? How did they happen in your organization? Was it innovation, or was it we had to replace a lot of PCs and we wanted to do something different, or what was the goal?
A number of driving forces. Our students come in with high expectations for IT.
Yep.
You know, our students came in with technologies, right? So they expect access to software and data at least anywhere, anytime. So.
All right. So we're trying to solve a tactical problem. The students showed up and they said, I need this, I need it everywhere, I need it now. And so that was, I mean, it's great that everybody threw their hands up and said, yeah, we're doing something in virtual end user computing. That makes me very, very happy. But I would bet, and you tell me if you think I'm crazy here, but I would bet that in all cases in this room, that we all did it in a reactionary way. It was in response to something the students wanted. It was in response to a problem we were trying to solve. It was in response to, you know, a network-wide PC replacement, or maybe we couldn't replace PCs, so we thought VDI was how we were going to get more life out of the equipment we had. You know, there were lots and lots of reasons, but most of them are tactical reasons. I think now we're in the position as an industry to be able to say, okay, let's take a step back and let's think about whether or not what we deployed to solve that tactical problem fits well with the strategic need and the future that our user population has.
So I've got a funny question for all of you. Does anyone know what VDI stands for? What do you think? What does VDI stand for in your mind? What's the virtual desktop? I actually think it stands for very distracting idea, says the guy who owns a software company that makes his living selling this stuff. And let me tell you why I say that. And Todd, please jump in.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, 2004, 2005 is probably the first time I actually saw somebody running a desktop Windows operating system on ESX in a data center and connecting to it through RDP. And it worked, and that was kind of interesting, and a lot of early adopters kind of ran with the scissors. But the reason I say it stands for very distracting idea is that, to Todd's point, it's a tactical architecture to solve a much bigger part of the conversation, which is, can I take a screen and make it stateless? Can I actually take, you know, a screen and make sure, or a device, and make sure there's absolutely no state on it? State comes from clouds or from data centers, right? My data, I mean, I believe that users do two things. Tell me if I'm wrong. They either create content or consume it. That's it, right? To do that, we give them applications. To run an application, I need an operating system, and then I need some type of, you know, hardware to actually store the data on. But at the end of the day, the high order bit in this conversation is that, you know, it's a very distracting idea, because what I'm really trying to solve is to make that workspace stateless so that scale can begin to work for me instead of against me, like the last 25 years of Moore's Law, making everything incredibly powerful and incredibly cheap, where it was easy to give someone 16 gigs of RAM because they might need it. It was easy to install every piece of software because they might double click it. Todd talks about innovation, because I'm not sure if you feel what I feel, but I definitely believe we're at a very similar event horizon to the time that happened back in the 70s when we took typewriters and threw them away and replaced them with this monumentally more complex thing called the PC. It was monumentally more expensive. It was monumentally more difficult to manage, and yet it happened. In 4 years, we threw away every typewriter. I get this spidey sense now that between cloud, between enterprise mobility management, between some of the software titles that we make, the work that Todd's doing, that we are back to a place where we can innovate. You know, we truly can.
I absolutely agree. And so I swear to you, this is all going to mean something very, very shortly. But the reason that we're going through this whole exercise of philosophy is because I'm trying to do something that I think is transformative for our industry. I'm trying to look at this in a new way. So the last philosophical example I'll give you is that I bought a new car a couple of days ago. Anyone ever heard of Elio Motors? Anyone ever heard that name? So Elio Motors, I don't know, maybe I can actually give you a picture of one. Let's see. Boo.
I was going to say it's always a risk to
I
bring
am
up
too connected to the network. Okay. And with that, we'll move on to something else. Elio Motors is a car company that has designed and built a $6,800 car, brand new. It gets 85 miles to the gallon. They start releasing them in February of next year. I pre-ordered mine because for $6,800, easy enough, right? This vehicle is actually a three-wheeled vehicle, one wheel in the back, two wheels in the front and back seating, so it seats two people. The reason that I did that is because the guy who designed it, I've been following this guy for a couple of years now. I mean, back to a Kickstarter campaign. He's been doing this for a long time, and he had been in the auto industry forever. And he said, you know, all the cars that we've built up to this point have now supplanted what we actually need automobiles for. And he looked at the general population of the country and he said, man, you know, if everybody could afford to drive to work and everybody could afford to buy gas, our country would be stronger. And so he's produced, you know, that was the goal. He set out and said, how do I build a car that is less than $7,000 and has a gas tank that's 8 gallons and it'll get 650 miles? And so he totally changed the entire industry just by thinking about those things. So I look at this. These are just the ones that I grabbed. You know, like I said, I didn't have a slide deck like 3 hours ago. I just made this because I happened to see there was a giant screen in here. These are the logos I had a moment to grab. These are just the ones that were off the top of my head. You know, some of these you probably recognize, the VMwares and the Citrixes and Microsofts. Some of the new ones you've probably heard because they're making a lot of noise, like Nutanix, hyper-converged compute platforms, right? But some of these others, who's familiar with Redo Mobility? Anyone?
Super cool.
Oh, has anyone ever heard the term app refactoring? Yeah, so
You're gonna, because this is wild stuff.
Yeah, app refactoring is the future of what we're all doing with end user computing. So these companies up here, Redo, Powwow, I think, did I get the other logo up there? Capriza, yeah. So what these companies are doing is if with Redo, let's say how many of you actually, I'll ask a question instead of giving you an answer. How many of you have some element of your virtual compute environment that is based around the fact that you've got an application that's a legacy application and you're running the version you're running or you're running the platform that you're running because you can't move that application somewhere else? Anyone ever had a legacy app? Yeah. What Redo does is Redo allows you to take any application, you drop Redo on the workstation where the application lives today, and it captures what the application is doing, recreates it dynamically in HTML5, allows you to tweak the screen a little bit. Yeah, I don't need that button, I never click on that, I want this one, I don't need that one, let's move this menu over there, drag and drop, and then you can publish that application out to any mobile device. So imagine for a moment a world where you're skipping the desktop entirely. We're not even bothering with Windows 7 or Windows 8, where what we're doing is we're just delivering the applications themselves, regardless of whether or not they are legacy applications, out to devices, whether it's my Android tablet or my phone or the hybrid device that I'm running this presentation off of, or a Chromebook. It wouldn't really matter, right? That concept is really, really powerful. The reason that I depend so heavily on Tyler is because what Tyler's company does is Tyler's company builds an ecosystem of products. And what that ecosystem is designed to do is it's designed, there's Karen, hi Karen. Karen works with me, so I'm gonna pick on Karen. Gotcha. Karen, his product is designed to capture who Karen is and make Karen portable from device to device to device. I talked to somebody else earlier this week who said, you know, I've got students and we've got virtual desktops out in the world, but everybody logs in with generic credentials that the university provides for the labs. We don't have them log in with their own AD credentials. You know, we want them to be using Google Drive. They're kind of using it. They're kind of not. You know, we'd really like to be able to figure out how to make that work better. And so I said, well, you know, geez, why can't we leverage things like Profile Unity, which allows me to redirect shell folders, change registry values, do a whole lot of things on the fly as the user logs into something, essentially rehydrate their personality. Why can't I use that tool to essentially give everybody, instead of a generic logon, let's give them an actual user logon, and then let's reapply all those Google settings and redirect shell folders to Google Drive so it happens automatically. Whenever they work in the school, when they get home, it's on their tablet devices, it's on their home computers.
I've got a shortcut for them.
Go for it.
So my shortcut actually starts in the upper left-hand corner, and this is not going to be an infomercial for our gear, But anyone here use Google Maps and actually kind of enjoy it from a navigation standpoint? Right? I mean, I like it. The one thing I have noticed, though, is that no matter how good Google is and no matter how elegant the application is, if you don't know your starting point, it's really, really difficult to get turn-by-turn directions. So one of the things I would coach you, and we happen to make a piece of software called Stratosphere Fit. There are other solutions out there that will loosely fall under the assessment definition, is know your current state. It is never short of shocking to me, and I'm going to tell you a funny story about an insurance company down in the South, how little we know about our end user workforces today, both the configuration of every device on the network, but more importantly, what are our users or the clients or the students actually up to when they come in and use these machines that we spend a ton of time carefully care and feeding. The story I wanted to tell you was we did an assessment, was not with Todd, but it was down in Birmingham, Alabama for an insurance company. I probably shouldn't mention their name, but they have a duck in their commercial, and it rhymes with black, black. But the point is that we ran an assessment. They were interested in knowing their current state. They wanted to know the configuration of every PC and laptop on the network, and more importantly, they wanted to know about what people were actually using. And so the CIO looked at the report and he said, "Right facts, this is interesting. I seem to have 26,000 copies installed." We kind of looked at him and said, "Yes, sir, you do. 26,000 copies." He said, "What's the next column?" We said, "Well, that's concurrent usage." He said, "Well, 605. We said, yeah, 605. It's like, "Well, how many people have ever clicked on this app?" And it was like 1,100. So the moral of the story was that by virtue of letting a piece of software come in, take a look around your environment, they found 25,000 copies of WriteFacts that organization was paying for support, patching, updating, putting in all of their images, just because of worst case scenario, someone might double click it. But we know irrefutably that only 1,100 people did, and concurrently only 600 people ever used it. So might there be a better way to deliver WriteFacts into the workspace? I'm not sure if it's Redo Mobility or if it's actually streaming it in or using application layering like we're going to talk about with FlexApp. But these are the types of things that allow you to innovate how you actually want to deliver a productive workspace out to your end users. And I like to, I guess in a silly way, say that good data helps you make good decisions, or at least avoid poor decisions. And I know, Todd, you use this as part of your methodology hourly.
Yeah, I do. And actually, my story is not totally dissimilar to that, but the difference is it actually happened to me, my company. Way back in the day when we first started using Stratosphere, I needed sample data to show customers. So I said, "That's okay, we'll turn the microscope inward and we'll look at ourselves." And so we deployed all the software into our own network. And I have a controller who runs my company. She sits, 15 feet on the other side of a wall from me. And so I get the report back, and I'm looking at network latency, and there's mine all nice and happy, like sub-millisecond. Yay! There's Brit, 530 milliseconds of latency. I was like, how is that even possible? It's not like she's on the Asia-Pac network. She's 10 feet from my office. We're plugged into the same switch. So, of course, engineer in me, bad network card, bad port on the switch, something like that. Replace the Ethernet cable. So we went and did the obvious things, right? No change. So I started digging into it, and she had no idea that this was even going on, that she was even being measured. And so I finally was like, all right, there's not a hardware issue here. Why is her latency so high? So one day I went and I just stood behind her desk for a little while. And I'm watching her work, and like nothing unusual out of the ordinary. And slowly my consciousness becomes aware that there is music playing. And I finally said, "Hey, Britt, what is that music?" And she said, "Oh, it's my radio station from my hometown where I grew up." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, when I get homesick, I like to listen to the radio station where I grew up." And so then I go and look at that application and realize this thing was programmed by somebody who clearly had been hit in the head with a lot of 2x4s, because it was poorly written, it's bleeding memory like you can't believe, all kinds of network rebroadcasting going on, packet errors, just everything you can imagine.
Proxying through Belarus.
Yeah, total disaster of an application. And I had this like watershed moment where I went, oh my gosh, if I had virtualized this entire network, her virtual desktop would have failed, not because of technology, not because of software, but because of human nature, who she is, her psychology. She gets homesick, so VDI doesn't work. And it was like a very big moment for me. And we're talking about, probably almost a decade ago now. And ever since then, I've been on the hunt and trying to figure out, how do I capture the essence of you and you and you and you and you and build something that's meaningful that way, so that I don't have things fail because of psychology. So, every day I'm trying to find better ways to make the environment work. So I am now in a mode of thinking about multi-platform environments. I think that the concept that we're going to say, okay, we're going to be a Citrix shop, and that's what we're going to use to deliver our end user compute, or we're going to be a VMware shop, or we're going to do this with RDS. I mean, just off the top of my head, okay, I can do Citrix, I can do VMware, those are obvious. Microsoft RDS, Microsoft RD Apps. I could skip the desktop completely if I wanted to. What about just regular brokerless virtual machines? Anyone ever done that? Because we have. Brokerless virtual machines. I took my VMware environment, installed Windows 7, cloned it 52 times, and then set up RDP on each one of them and hard-coded my thin clients to connect to it. Small environments, actually not a terrible way to do things. You're still left managing it the way you used to. It may as well be physical PCs, but at least now we're not running out to the desktop every 10 minutes. I've got also, vWorkspace, if you guys are familiar with that. Anyone remember Quest? Yeah?
Provision networks.
Everyone know that Quest got acquired by Dell, and that when Quest was acquired by Dell, that Dell threw all kinds of money and resources and programming behind vWorkspace and has built actually a very robust product around it. It's pretty incredible. So now I've got HDX, which is high performance display protocols, right? The high performance user experience. I've got the PC over IP platform. Who's ever heard of Teradici Arch? Anyone ever heard of Arch? ARCH? Yeah, no one has.
Yeah. Or maybe ever.
The only people who have ever heard of Arch are at VMware, and they heard it because they were trying to kill it. You need to look into Arch. Arch is Teradici's software implementation of PC over IP for Microsoft RDP clients. So I can take Arch, deploy it on my terminal server, and run PC over IP sessions to my terminal environment without VMware. Scary if you're VMware, because PC over IP is their big claim to fame, right? So, I look at all these different things, and I look at the technologies like Redo and Powwow, and I start thinking to myself, all right, if I wanted to virtualize Karen, what do I need to think about? What do you do every day, Karen? What's your day like? I know what you do, but these people don't.
Sales team, work with the vendors.
Where do you work out of?
Any place I want to.
Yeah, so we have an office in Waltham.
The Waltham office, I go back and forth to Pawtucket, to Waltham, back and forth.
And I know you didn't say you were texting while you were driving, but you did make some insinuation that you might check your device from time to time when you're...
While I'm parked.
Oh, while you're parked. Okay, that makes tremendous sense. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
I, on the other hand, will tell you, not proud of this fact, but I did actually once attend a go-to-meeting from a tablet while driving. Don't do that.
I presented once,
you?
yeah, driving up the Merritt Parkway on 15. I knew the content pretty well, so I had my headset on, and the laptop and the MiFi were in the seat, and I just did next slide. No one knew. I thought it was kind of cool. Totally dangerous.
I swear I'm not trying to distract with stories, but that one that I attended,
yeah.
the client was AAA.
Oh, God.
So I'm on the phone with them, and they said, can you see the slides? And I said, yeah, hold on a minute, I'm in a car. And as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, crap. So yeah, AAA, that's the one you want to do that with.
Yeah.
Awesome. So anywho, the whole point of all of this stuff is that I think you're at a point where you need smart people who have been there and done this kind of thing. People who have seen every possible implementation that's out there, people who have solved the problems that nobody wanted to solve. The tempting thing with VDI right now, and again, like I said, if you're talking about VDI, you're missing the point. Because again, VDI, we're going to virtualize desktops, not solve problems, not virtualize users. We're going to virtualize hardware, right? The tempting thing is, any one of those technologies is easy enough to install yourselves. It's not hard. You just put the CD in or download the executable and off you go. But I think that the bigger challenge actually, as Tyler said, it all begins in the upper left-hand corner here with assessment. And then where do we go from there? Now we're into, all right, we understand who we're trying to solve for. Karen is on the road all day, every day. Does it make sense for me to architect a virtual environment for Karen that depends heavily on connectivity? Probably not. If I could find ways to take her applications and make them HTML5 caching applications where she can have access to the basic data that's there without needing an internet connection, doesn't that make her more productive? So, all right, now I'm starting to think about what technologies up on that big list of logos would start to do that. And then I have to figure out how many Karens do I have in my organization versus how many Phils. if Phil just walked in the back. So
We're gonna pick
you
up
know,
Phil.
Right. Phil does a completely different job than Karen does. So I need to think about that model. Now, maybe it's one technology across the board, and that's great. Maybe it's not. But either way, you know, how do we aggregate it?
I think there's 3 shortcuts that you just
Yeah.
made me think of 3 things.
Go.
So, and
Jump in.
I'm a simple guy, so I kind of like to break things down into either numbers or colors. But shortcut number 1 is this notion of getting your users under management. Anyone familiar with the term UEM, User Environment Management? Does that ring a bell? AppSense does it, we do it. There's some other solutions out there, Microsoft does UEV. But the notion is this, which is we believe user environment management is as follows. It's just a bad idea to have your users' state, the stuff that they do to either make their workspace productive, statically bound to a device. It should be, we think, in the data center, you know, or in the cloud, if that's the way you're so inclined. Things like my browsing history, my settings, you can go on and on and on. You know, it's the things that I've done to my workspace to make it intrinsically mine and to make it more productive depending on the work I do. But the first thing is you have to have the willingness to say it's no longer going to be bound to a device. It's going to live in a data center now. Don't even worry about VDI. Don't worry about terminal services. Don't worry about HTML5. Don't worry about any of that. Just have the mental discipline to say, okay, let me model this out. If I take the user environment, take it off the device, and it lives in storage on the data center, check. Number 2 is applications. And this is, you get sense that this is happening, you know, whether it's Google Docs, whether it is SaaS-based applications, you know, whether it's AppVert. Anyone familiar with application virtualization like ThinApp or AppV? Successful 60% of the time, but what about the other 40%? If I can't liberate the 40% of the other applications, I'm back to 0. You know, if the user needs 10 apps and I can only handle 6 with AppVert, I can't tell them, sorry, do your job or do your work without the other 4. I've got to find a way to get the other 4 in there. But regardless of what technology you're going to use, and Todd's the expert in this space, just again, have the discipline to say that applications are no longer going to be statically installed on devices. I'm going to get them to the user somehow, in some way, shape, or form, without installing them. That's number 2. Number 3 is data. I kind of joked about, you know, the Dropbox issue, but I take Karen as an example. And let's say that last month Karen sat at a laptop. Let's say it was a Dell laptop, had a nice terabyte hard drive, maybe it was even SSD, it was fast, and you had a terabyte of stuff stored on that hard drive. But today you're rushing to go to a meeting, you don't have time to pick that laptop up and boot it, you know, and look at the document that you want to present, but you've got this phone, right? Sits in the pocket of your suit jacket there. I don't need apps on it. I don't really even maybe need my user environment. I just need that document. You know, I need that document, which is maybe my ticket or my presentation. But again, it's the mental notion of being willing to separate the documents from the device, and those now live in the cloud or the data center. So your user environment, your applications, and your data. Once you liberate those 3 things, in my personal opinion, and our Profile Unity is our product that does this, I now have the option and the elegance of putting together that workspace however I want. Now I get to innovate. I'm in control. Scale is now working for me. I might take an app, virtualize it, or put it in a layer and publish it out to 10,000 people. I might take data, like from Karen and the other 6,000 people that are on the network, lives in the data center. I give them one shim, maybe it's Secure Content Locker or AirWatch's, Secure Content Locker, or ShareFile from Citrix, or OneDrive from Office 365 or from Google. There's tons of options, but we're seeing this happen more and more because Todd hit something right on the head in the beginning of the presentation, which is, and I jokingly refer to it as VDI being the very distracting idea, because that's not the problem we were trying to solve. It was access to data. It was access to personalization. It was access and elegance in deploying applications. VDI is just, it's plumbing. You know, it's a kind of a boring way to run Windows and to get it to a lot of different people. But the true stuff, I think, is the rest of it. Agree or disagree?
100%. 100% agree.
Oh, question in the back. Sure, yeah.
The number 2 you just mentioned there, application.
Yeah.
Is that what live streaming is?
Kind of. So there's a bunch of, well, I like to think of them as, well, there's probably 3 different flavors. So there's AppVert, and what we do with AppVert is we literally encapsulate the application. We put it in a bubble. It's got a virtual operating system, a virtual registry. It's got just enough operating system so the app can actually run. And it's nice. It's contained. It's an object. I can put it on a USB stick. I can plug it into anyone's computer. I can stream it down to an endpoint. I can physically put that object into an operating system, and it's just not installed. Great use cases. Sometimes if I need to run previously contentious applications that don't play well with each other, wrapping one up or both of them in a bubble makes a lot of sense. And I can actually connect the fabric of those two with things like app link and app sync, where this app, even though it's encapsulated, has a little bit of awareness of this app so they play well together or not. That's app vert. Application layering is a brand new concept. I was just out in Denver last week at Bri Forum, which is kind of this super uber nerd end user computing event. And really it's quite remarkable how interesting app layering is. So unlike app virtualization, instead of encapsulating the app in a bubble, I'm simply virtualizing the location of the binaries of the app. And let's say it's a read-only volume on the network, right? It's a VHD or a VMDK, it could be any file, well, for the most part, any file format you want. And now I can point 10,000 people to that one instance of the binaries. Let's say it's Office. And so now 10,000 people, when they double click, are using the read-only copy. Anything they do to customize the app gets saved as a profile element. And the cool thing is, if I want to upgrade from iTunes 10 to 11, I swap the binaries. Now 10,000 people have iTunes 11 without me pushing out a single package, not one. The third way is with streaming or with SaaS-based, where it's kind of a hybrid between the two. The cool thing with application layering is it's invisible to the operating system. Windows thinks it's local, thinks it's native. So if it'll work installing in your laptop, it'll work in an app layer. So things like antivirus, things that need COM, DCOMs, physical device drivers will work in an application layer where maybe in a bubble they don't. But you need someone like Todd and Envision to come in and say, let's do an assessment and look at anyone here have more than 50 apps that you have to work with? Right, I mean, we all do. 50, 500, Tyler. 50. Right, exactly. But it's daunting. But the cool thing is that with an assessment, with the expertise, the trusted advisor status that Todd's earned over the last more than 2 decades, they can come in, run an assessment and say, these 262 apps are perfect for encapsulation, for app vert. These 599, we got to find a different way to deliver those. And quite frankly, these 82, we only notice your mobile users using those, so I want to talk to you about Redu Mobility. I want to talk to you about refactoring. I want to talk to you about somehow using HTML5 to get those. And now all this like daunting buzzwords of cloud and VDI, and it all goes away, because now we're actually solving a problem, which is how do I get Karen the 6 apps she needs to do her job from 8 to 8:30 until she's actually in her office. We have another question back there. Not necessarily. Well, yes and no. So
I was ready to throw down.
This is going to be fun.
Like, wait.
Hold on. No, I love it because it's a great segue. So in a world where you have, in my opinion, and Todd's way smarter than I am, where you have ubiquitous network access, a lot of things are possible versus when you don't. But in my model, where this device has no state on it anymore, it's okay to go ahead and put state back onto it if, in fact, it's a temporary use case, like I need to go to Bali or a village in Africa. I put my profile back on, then I take my applications that...
So you just don't have time to pick up a laptop and use...
Well, exactly. See, and that's the good news, is the laptop that we pick up had no state on it. And so this is a right-click to make it stateful for Tyler, so I can have the exact things that I need based on my usage, because I've been watching it with good monitoring, and I put my apps back on, and then I actually going to go ahead and put data back onto that device as well and go and do my work. And when I come back to maybe the real world, or maybe I stay there, I make the decision. What elements on that machine do I care about bringing back onto the network? Do I care about my data? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and back that up. The rest of it, don't worry about it. Maybe a couple of profile changes or customizations I've made, maybe a new backdrop picture of myself in the new water well or whatever it is that I built. But the apps are disposable. I mean, it's the right concept.
Well, I would also...
I think she had to fall on.
Which is what my faculty always argue with me, say, I'm not trusting your network server. I only trust this thumb drive in my pocket.
Yeah.
That is exactly the point they make.
Very valid. Oh yeah, and sometimes maybe that's just the documents you care about. Maybe it's the documents and the apps.
Yeah, and what you're right. You're right where my head was. But the other thing that I was thinking about is that when you tell me that in this wherever it is we're going, that we don't have infrastructure, so to make the dream come true we need the infrastructure. My argument is actually to make the dream come true we need to know that that's the behavior of the user, that that's where they're going to go. Everyone know what a flange is? Flange connects 2 pipes together. Okay. There's a startup company called Flange, and what they're doing is they're writing an app. I mean, you guys are staring at me up here. I've got my my Android tablet, my Windows tablet hybrid, and my Android phone. Flange is an application that you put onto your phone, and it pretends that it is Dropbox corporate. It pretends that it is Google Drive corporate. And what happens is you create the wireless network with your cell phone, and in the absence of an internet connection, your Google Drive will still sync between your devices as long as it's connected to that access point. The whole idea here is to create this very ubiquitous environment where when you are out of contact with internet, that your multi-device world can still maintain connections and maintain synchronicity. So for me, as a virtual end user compute specialist, my goal, my object is to understand the end user and help enable them with technologies that make them productive wherever it is they're going to be. And that's, you know, a fabulous segue into, because I don't know, what time is it right now? Does anyone know? Here we are.
Top of the hour.
Top of the hour. We're going until 4:10, right? Is that what we're doing? Yeah. So, you know, what I've got here on the screen, this thing here, this is a combination of a graphic that I got from him and another graphic that I created myself. But, you know, this whole capture humanity, mobilize personality concept, I want to do a few things. If I have a net new customer, and we're talking about virtual end user compute, my answer to them is, look, if you had an unlimited budget, I will make every last one of your applications work. I will make everything play together if you have an unlimited budget. Because I'll stand up an environment that seamlessly moves between Zen app and RDS app, and that ties together elements of what we see here in Profile Unity, and probably some applications that I did through Rito, and maybe one that I did through Captiva, you know, and at the end of the day, all the users are going to know is, here's my desktop and I'm running my software. They have no idea how it's working. But most people do not have an unlimited budget. So what happens is they end up with one or two pieces of software that they try to ubiquitously apply across their entire organizations. So that leads me to the place of saying, step one, understand what's happening, upper left corner there. Step two, mobilize solutions for the tactical problems that you'll encounter. The I/O constraint stuff. Flex I/O is a product designed around helping to resolve the I/O constraint that we've all come to know and love. Profile Unity is all about being able to capture persona and make that portable. You know, the stuff that you see down here in Stratosphere UX, lower left corner, this is the part that is, I think, most commonly missed. And there are, again, you know, Tyler's here, this is his product. There are lots of products that do this, but I like the way Stratosphere does it. When you had a user who used to call you with a physical desktop and said, my desktop's slow, you knew how to troubleshoot that, right? You knew how to go about that. So when your user calls you in your virtual environment and you've got 150 users on one particular blade, and one of them calls you and says, my VM is slow, do we have the tools to be able, or are we looking at them and saying, well, you know, one user out of 150 must be pilot error, you know? I mean, IT was given, we were given the technology, we weren't given the tools to manage it. We don't know how to deal with a user who has that complaint. So, you know, next step, let's empower the organization to understand what's happening functionally in that environment every minute of every day. And, you know, one of the things that we did recently, maybe you have the time, maybe you don't, we stood up a managed service for it. So we've got a customer right now that is a huge healthcare organization, and we monitor every last one of their virtual desktops all day, every day, all night long. And every week we've got an engineer who sits there and reviews the reports and looks for trends and helps them understand what they can do to be better than they were the day before, right? Finally, in my mind, is breaking away from brand loyalty. So I've been saying this a lot lately, which is a little weird to hear a VAR say, because, you know, as consultants we have to sign up with VMware or with Citrix or whoever. But I tell people this a lot. Loyalty is fabulous in friendships, terrible in the data center. Terrible in the data center. The moment you say we're a Citrix shop, we are a Cisco shop, we are an HP shop, that is tantamount to saying, I don't care about innovation. I'm not interested in what's best. I'm interested in what they're selling me. So I'm telling you that I get the argument. Believe me, I get it. I had to manage this stuff myself for many years. I get the whole, I don't want to have too many disparate technologies to manage thing. But we're not in technology. We're in human services. Our job is to make our users' lives better, and we can do that if we're willing to step back from the edge of saying, I'm an HP guy, or I'm a Dell guy, or I'm a Cisco guy. We have to be willing to say, I am a user guy, I'm a technology guy, and wherever that trail leads is where I am going to go. And I'm going to find the best solutions that fit. So, my challenge to you guys is we can do better. We can incorporate innovation. I met with a guy yesterday who said, yeah, we've got virtual desktops for a school system. We're opening a new curriculum. It's in healthcare. We want to capture in real time what's happening clinically in the field. Could we do that using Google Glass, and can that connect to my virtual desktop environment? And my answer to him was, we can make anything happen. This is just a question of sitting down and deciding how much it's going to take to make it occur and finding out if that's feasible. But isn't that a great idea? Isn't it a wonderful thing to step back and say, stop saying, can I use software to manage all my mobile devices, and start saying, can I put something in the hands of my students that no other school has ever put in their hands to teach them in a way that nobody has ever taught? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Adopt a user-centric approach, empower your users. Let's give them the technology that they need to be valuable. And I think that the reality is that what you need to make that work is you need organizations, and this is not a pitch for Envision. This is not a pitch for LWL. This is a plea to you. I don't care who you use. Do I want you to work with me? Of course I do. But I don't care if you've got a company that you love and they're capable of doing it, great. You need someone who speaks the language of virtual end user compute, not VDI, who's going to come in and help you with wellness. They're going to review your environment. They're going to help you remediate things that they identify that could be done better. They're going to help you evolve the technology. I don't care how good the environment is today. I promise you it can be better. All you have to do is want to make that happen. And if you want to make that happen, companies like mine, and there are others around the country, will be very glad to come and take a look at what's going on and show you a path. And we'll bring, he's very modest, but we'll bring smart guys like Tyler who were there at the birth of virtual computing to bear for you to show you what can be done. So that's my message. I promised you it would all tie together. That's how it all ties together. It starts with a philosophy, it moves into a tactical action, and it results in a goal for everybody as we walk out of the room to do better for our user populations and to improve the environments we have. So that's it for me. I'm going to hang out here. I wanted to get you guys out on time, and I think I'm pulling that off 2 minutes early. Thank you very much. Everyone says I can't do that. But in the meantime, thank you guys for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having us. And don't forget, you have that magic wand, so what problem are you going to go solve?
And now I'm putting music back on.
All right, yeah, a little music. Any questions, gang, from anything or everything that we touched on? I have to go to Washington, D.C., but other than that, I've got 12 minutes before I need.
It's got to be fancy, don't you?
I know. It is the National Press Club. It's just a little. Hillary invited me. It's no big deal.
And the
Yeah.
virtualized application.
Yeah.
What will be the challenge when you have some application that does need to have a cross-application interactions?
So I'd say if you have to have application interdependencies, then in my mind, it brings up application layering, or it's got to go in your base image. Again, here I am breaking my own rules. But here's the story. If I look at 1,000 users on my network, and I notice that there are 9 applications that are in popular use by everyone daily.
The use is one thing. I'm talking about application dependency.
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Yep, jump in.
I actually think application interdependency is the best feature ever in VMware's application virtualization platform. So when we look at ThinApp was an incredible idea, but its biggest power is the one it's least used for. Wow, that took some work. The product has in it the ability, when you package up an application, when you virtualize it, to be able to define what its interdependencies are, and not just what they are, what versions of the applications it's required to use are. So you can actually package up Java, package up
.NET blank.
Right, .NET, all those things, and have all the different versions related to that. And the most common place I actually use it is packaging up browsers. Healthcare environments, because in healthcare environments, you can't believe how antiquated healthcare software really is, and it depends on this specific version of Java and this specific browser, and if that magic combination isn't there, everything breaks.
Yeah.
So I've got browsers where when you double-click them and you open up IE and you type in the web address for the application you're going to go to for Miriam Hospital, it goes, oh wait, for this I have to be running Chrome and I need to be on this specific version of Java, and it drops the IE browser, pops the Chrome browser, loads the libs for that version of Java and takes you to the page. Really powerful stuff, rarely ever used.
Yeah, and the other thing too that kind of segues into that is kind of the isolation, merged isolation mode, where ThinApp is intelligent enough to know, do I need to go read the local registry, do I read my virtual registry, or is it a hybrid where I'll actually write and rewrite? And the cool thing is that those play well with application layering solutions where we're doing like side-by-side DLL checking and or I guess we call it reverse playing elements that we've laid down into the registry out, so that when user number 2 walks up and steps up to that device, that there's no residue or rust, from a previous user. So that's the coolest part about where we're at right now. I mean, this isn't like theory. This is, stuff that you can actually start playing with, this afternoon, or tomorrow.
I'll do it for you in the morning.
Yeah, he's really good.
Any other questions? Other thoughts? All right, well,
Excellent.
Jenna, stand up, Jenna.
Jenna!
This is Jenna.
Jenna from Atlanta, everyone.
Jenna from Atlanta. I think when you guys came in, Jenna probably scanned you as you guys were walking in the door. However, you are very welcome to snag Jenna on the way out and tell her I really want to have a longer conversation about this, and we will reach out to you directly. You're all going to get a thank you letter from me anyway. If you are up for it, give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes to talk to you about your specific environment and see if there's some way in which we can help you elevate the standard that you're delivering.
Any of you that are local, I live up in Maine, so although I'm not here all the time, I'm also happy Jenna knows how to direct my traffic flights. I love to come in and speak about this type of stuff in person as well, so I'll bring plenty of caffeine.
Awesome.
And Todd.
All right, we're going to be kicked out.
Yeah, we're going to get kicked out.
Someone coming in after this.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
I appreciate it.